Evening. Welcome to the Anacortes City Council meeting of April 14th, 2025. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Mr. Franciac, take the roll, please.
Mr. Fantini.
Here.
Mr. Young. Mr. Walters.
Here.
Ms. Cleveland McGrath.
Here.
Ms. Moulton.
Here.
Mr. McDougall.
Here.
Ms. Hubick.
Here.
Thank you.
Mayor Miller.
That was simultaneous. Ms. Moulton.
I make a motion to excuse Mr. Young from tonight's meeting.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Moulton and a second by Mr. Fantini to excuse Mr. Young. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, announcements and, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, announcements and committee reports. I've got a couple of them and a proclamation. So first announcements, I'd like to thank the Parks Department for the annual fastest egg dash in the West. So great event on Friday evening. So it takes about 2 minutes for the kiddos to pick up probably 1,000 eggs. So awesome for that work. Cap Santa Rotary Viewpoint ribbon cutting Wednesday, April 16th. So that road will be closed. I'm not sure exactly what point, but we'll be running. It'll be closed to driving traffic, but shuttle bus will start at 12:45. Dedication ceremony at 1:30. Residential Cleanup Day, a very always popular. That event is this Saturday, April 19th, from 9 a.m. to noon at the Ops facility. Again, you have to be a customer, lives in the city limits, and will verify your residence. Household garbage accepted, furniture and yard waste not accepted, televisions, propane tanks, tires, large vehicle parts, hazardous waste, large construction, demo waste. Appliances can be accepted for a fee. And then 4th of July, that's right around the corner. Nominations for Grand Marshal are open through the June 15th, and you can do that online or at the Senior Center in person. And forms available online for signing up for a float. And you have to sign up for a float if you want to be judged in the competition. All right, I have a proclamation, City of Anacortes proclamation, Arbor Day, April 25th, 2025. That's coming up. Whereas arbor means tree in Latin, Arbor Day is a special day that has been set aside for planting and caring for trees. And whereas a secular day of observance in which individuals and groups are encouraged to plant trees, whereas all 50 states and countries throughout the world celebrate this holiday every spring to teach children the importance of forestry, and whereas Anacortes has been recognized by the National Arbor Day Foundation as a Tree City USA for the 23rd consecutive year, and whereas the tree planting this year will be held at Altar Americas Memorial Park on April 25th, 2025 at 10 a.m. Now therefore be it resolved that it is fitting and appropriate that I, Matt Miller, Mayor of the City of Anacortes, do hereby proclaim Friday, April 25th, 2025 as our celebration of Arbor Day in Anacortes and encourage our citizens to plant trees, thus leaving a legacy for present and future generations. All right, other announcements and committee reports. Planning Committee.
Mayor Miller.
Ms. Moulton.
The Planning Committee met at 5 p.m. today. It was council members Cleveland McGrath, Walters, and myself with Planning Director John Coleman and Senior Planner Libby Grage. And we talked about a few things, mainly to do with we talked about parking of trailers on private property in the commercial business district. We also talked about what constitutes a temporary building and what code allows. And Mr. Walters looked up the code for us and found that there are some areas where we could be a little bit more specific with some of those regulations. We also talked about containers on properties. And we just kind of mainly talked about that for a while. And that's pretty much it.
All right, any questions for Planning Committee? All right, Economic Development Committee. I think they met but I think Mr. Young was the council member in attendance. Okay. All right, we'll catch that one up later. Any other announcements or committee reports? All right, we're on to item 4, public comment. Any member of the public wish to address the council on anything that is not on our agenda? And I am looking, I've lost my online access. Do we have anybody online? Nobody signed up, by the way. Okay, thank you. All right, well, I'll move on to our consent agenda, items 5A through C. Council.
Mayor Miller,
Mr. Walters.
I move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
The motion by Mr. Walters and a second by Ms. Moulton to approve the consent agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, on to, we don't have a public hearing tonight, so we're on to other business. Item 7A, this is Resolution 3180. This is a discussion item with possible action, and pretty excited to introduce Mr. Vogt. And you'll introduce our special guest. Over to you.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Miller, members of the council, members of the audience. It's always fun when you get a vote of confidence from the community as a city, as elected officials and staff and citizens, and tonight we're getting one of those in the form of a $200,000 donation to the Anacortes Community Forest Lands. This is coming from the estate of Sherry Kohler, who was a member of our community for close to 17 years, discovered us via boat, I believe, and I would like to introduce Stephanie Best, who is handling the estate and making sure that the wishes of her friend and neighbor are met. And so it's great to have her here, and it's great to have the chance to dream about what we could use that money for. So that's what's going on tonight. Happy to answer any questions if you have any. Otherwise, I'll get out of the way.
All right. Well, Council, thank you very much, and thank you for the bequeathment, and we certainly appreciate it. Okay, Council, any questions, comments?
Mayor Miller?
Ms. Moulton.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Best, for being here, and many thanks to Ms. Kohler and her estate and her generosity. And this really couldn't come at a better time with funding difficulties and with the city itself having a hard time meeting all of its obligations financially. And Parks is usually one of the first places that gets the short shrift side of things. So this is very, very much appreciated. The forest lands are the biggest treasure that we have in my mind. So this is extraordinarily helpful. So thank you so much. And it's very heartwarming to witness and benefit from this level of generosity. It's extraordinary. So thank you.
All right.
Mayor Miller.
Ms. Cleland McGrath.
Won't put you on the spot as the executive of the state, but I hope that we will get, staff was able to kind of get an impression of what was a priority and what she appreciated, Ms. Kohler, about the forest lands, so that we can be thoughtful with this large donation in her name, and hopefully somehow acknowledge her in some kind of more of a permanent way. So don't have to tell us now, but hopefully that conversation has occurred. And thank you.
We haven't obligated the money prior to council acceptance, so.
And I think it was walked in on Thursday, right?
Yeah.
So but needless to say, we like to try to take quick action when we have such generous members of the community. All right, well, this does require some council action, if you're willing, Council.
Mayor Miller,
Mr. Fantini.
I move that we approve Resolution 3180.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Fantini, a second by Mr. McDougall to approve Resolution 3180. Any additional discussion? Mr. Franciac, vote, please.
Mr. Walters.
Yes.
Ms. Cleland McGrath.
Yes.
Ms. Moulton.
Yes.
Mr. McDougall?
Yes.
Ms. Hubick?
Yes.
Mr. Fantini?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you, and thank you again. Appreciate it. Sure, we can applaud that one. Okay, next up is item 7B. This is a Skagit Transit presentation. It's discussion item only, and I'll do my best to introduce Crystal Statham, Skagit Transit Executive Director. And while she's getting that up, just myself and Ms. Moulton, we sit on the board of Skagit Transit, and last year I had the pleasure of chairing Skagit Transit Board and had the pleasure of working.
It was a pleasure working with you.
But
Kinda
with that, I'll let you introduce yourself. You'll do a better
Thank
job
you.
of that.
Crystal Stedham, CEO of Skagit Transit, and tonight I have with me Malia Kuzminski. She is my new Planning and Outreach Manager. Moving forward, hopefully she'll be doing these presentations, but she's only been with us for, about a week and a half, 2 weeks or so now, so I'll be doing the presentation tonight with her assistance, of course. Our board got to see this. Oh, first of all, thank you for saying Skagit, not Scat. Trying to move away from that. So our board got to see this full presentation about a week and a half or so ago. Mayor Miller and Council Member Moulton, we will not be doing the full presentation tonight because it's over an hour, and so we're going to focus just on the changes that are going to be happening in the city of Anacortes. So tonight we'll be talking about existing conditions and community feedback, system-wide, Anacortes recommendations, route by route, and implementation timeline. So I've been with Skagit Transit for just over 2 years now, and when I started, one of the things that I recognized coming from two much larger agencies is that our routes had a lot of opportunities for improvement. We ended up hiring a consultant. We've been working on this project for probably at least a year and a half now. We hired them to look at our local routes, our regional routes, and to look to see if, to assess if microtransit was an option for us. Microtransit is like on-demand service. And the consultant specifically looked at Anacortes, Cedro-Woolley, Bow Edison, Burlington, and Mount Vernon as potential areas. Some of the goals for the long-range transit plan was to provide a guide for the next 5 to 10 years of investment, identify short, medium, and long-term implementation steps, and for ongoing engagement and evaluation to determine future opportunities. So when the consultant looked at our routes, he determined that we really, overall, some of our strengths was that we had really good coverage throughout our system, but that we were really challenged with infrequent and kind of the circular service that I talked about, and that we also really lacked in evening and weekend service. So the phase one of this was we did a lot of community feedback. As you can see, we did we got over 600 survey responses. We did feedback throughout the entire community to include several here in Anacortes. I think Councilmember Moulton, I think you were at 1 or 2 of them, perhaps. The purpose is to, part of the community feedback we got was that the public is asking for increased frequency, increased span of service, and primarily later service, better regional connectivity, and on-demand service. The microtransit that we talked about. Some of the long-term recommendations are looking at efficiency, streamlining service, increased frequency, and expanding service. Here is a map of the recommended network. As you can see, still very good coverage. The changes that the consultant is recommending is really just to make this a more efficient service. As you can see here, this is all of the improvements in consolidated and discontinued routes that the consultant is recommending. He's recommending that they are recommending that we eliminate the 409, which is a circular route here in the city of Anacortes. It's one of our poorest performing routes. That, of course, would be in conjunction with the new service, which is the on-demand service that we'll be talking about a little more. And then there's Some pretty significant changes to the 410, which also runs here in Anacortes, primarily shortening it. Right now it goes from March's Point here, so now the service will not go to March's Point. The 40X would cover that instead. So what's changing? The 40X will now run from Mount Vernon to Anacortes, Skagit Station to Anacortes. We're going to extend the downtown service to Anacortes and add Sunday service. The 409, as we talked about, would be replaced with the 410, the 40X and the 410 and the on-demand service. The 410 service would be shortened to downtown Anacortes and would be extended to Island Hospital. The 513, that route is going to be eliminated. We're going to reinvest those resources into the 40X and extend the Route 301 to terminate at March's Point. And then, of course, as we talked about, pilot the microtransit service. That was the short-term recommendations. For midterm, we're looking at improving the weekday frequency to 30 minutes, improving the Sunday frequency to 60 minutes. For the 410, improve the weekday service to 30 minutes, add Sunday service, and then kind of revisit the microtransit to see if it's working. So you'll see a map in a moment that identifies a smaller area that really is just the core of the downtown for the short-range recommendation for microtransit, the on-demand service. But a couple of different things. One, we applied for a grant. If we get the grant money that we're hoping to get, we could provide a bigger service area, but for now we're primarily going to focus on the downtown corridor. For the long-term changes, again, 40X, extend night service, same with the 410, and then again, revisit microtransit to see if we can provide broader coverage. So on-demand transit really just fills the gaps between fixed route and paratransit service. It provides folks the ability to get point-to-point ride within a service zone, and all of our vehicles will be ADA accessible. So for those of you that are not familiar with microtransit, we kind of call it, it's kind of like Uber with public transit accessible, ADA accessible vehicles. And again, the consultant looked at 5 different areas: Anacortes, Bow Edison, Burlington, Mount Vernon, and Cedro. And Anacortes raised to the top as the service, the area that they were recommending to do microtransit, primarily because of the demographics, the density, and the pedestrian constraints. As you can see from the map, that's the pilot area that they're recommending that we start with and then potentially grow service from there. And with pilot funding, we could start this service relatively quickly. Again, we did apply for a grant, consolidated grant. We know that the state is still finalizing their budget, and we should hear probably around the May timeframe whether or not we receive that grant. We scored very well. I think we received an A score on that, so we are expecting to get that grant. The way that we start that service quickly is there's a lot of turnkey, they call it turnkey services, that provide all of the resources available to do it. They provide the buses, the staff, and the software. If we do that, we could probably start service within probably 12 weeks at the most, versus if we were to run the service in-house, we would have the capital expenses of purchasing the buses. We'd have to hire and train more drivers, and there's a lot more involved in doing that. Again, this is a 2-year pilot. The funding that we are hoping to get is a 2-year pilot, and during the course of that, we will assess the service to determine whether or not we want to continue. Are we going to continue the service at all? If we continue the service, are we going to run that in-house, or are we going to allow the contractor continue running that service? Some other investments that the consultant is recommending is better passenger and operator facilities, bus stops and bus shelters. Some of that includes our ADA transition plan, ensuring that all of our stops are ADA compliant, fleet replacement and expansion, and transit access and integration. So this is just a map of the recommendations in the West County. Again, the purple pinkish area is the microtransit area. The purple is the 410, and the red is the 40X 615, thank you, and the green is the 40X. Thank you. So there's a comparison of the existing versus the recommended service. Again, still really good service, just expanding and making the service much more efficient than the service that we're operating now. And I believe that we provided printouts for folks if you guys want to take a look at those. And it stopped moving. Next steps. So today, or yesterday rather, today marks our 30-year, yesterday was Sunday, right? Marks our 30-day public comment period for everyone to review the recommendations that the consultant is recommending. We've already received some really good feedback. The city of Burlington, Malia and I did a presentation to them last week, and or actually Mayor Asla in our board meeting identified an area of service that we were missing, so we're definitely going to go back and take a look at that. I think Cedro identified some areas that they were concerned about. So this really is the last opportunity, and this is why we're coming out to the public. It's really important for us that not only our board and the general community know, but specifically the council members knows, because you guys obviously are responsible to your constituents. So please read through the packet. We gave you an abridged version of the packet that the consultant gave us. The executive packet is, 173 pages. It's really in depth. Happy to send that to you guys too if you want to look through it. And it's on our website. Yeah. Is there any questions?
All right. Yeah, before I give it to Mr. Ryan, Mr. Walters, I just want to say I'm pretty excited about the opportunity to participate, and I guess it's an experiment for the
Pilot.
Yeah, I know, it's pilot. Pilot's the right word. We used some other words at the board meeting that pilot. Okay, just because everybody wants to go from point A to point B, and again, I think it's an opportunity to take a look at a route that can really enhance mobility around Anacortes, so
Yeah.
excited about that. All right, Mr.
We're
Walters.
excited about that too. I also wanted to mention that in you, Mayor Miller, and Carolyn Moulton, you guys will hear about this at the board meeting. We've already spoken about it. We're going to try to do a pilot. If the board approves it, we're going to do a pilot on Guaymas Island. Also, hopefully you guys or we, the county, you're not the county. The county is doing the haul out right now. We're providing service on the island, which we only do during the haul out. Folks are already taking the bus to get onto the ferry to get across. We're hoping to carry on that momentum and run a pilot there for about 6 months. The goal is, especially in conjunction with the microtransit, to get people to take the bus to the ferry, to get on the island, ride microtransit, and keep their money here, keep and spend their money here. So that's really the goal.
Mr. Walters.
You had mentioned that the microtransit on-demand service is something that you're applying for a grant for.
We did apply
Is
for
the service dependent on that grant, or will you be able to launch it without the grant?
I feel like we could probably still do it even if we don't get the grant. Again, we scored really well, so we're pretty confident that we're going to get it, but of course, we all see what's happening with the state budget. The plan is to eliminate the 409 anyways, and we could use the cost savings from the 409 to run a smaller footprint, more than likely the downtown corridor that we looked at, but I don't think that we'd be able to expand beyond that without additional funding.
So you would be able to have some on-demand service even without the grant?
Yes.
Through the savings on the 409?
Yes.
And so do you plan to eliminate the 409 if you don't get the grant?
Yes.
Okay.
We're still going to eliminate the 409 and just do a smaller area for the microtransit pilot.
And is that grant Climate Commitment Act funded?
It's through Consolidated. That's funded through a couple of different pots, and I believe CCA money is part of that. I think it's CCA, multimodal, and a couple of different funds.
Is it a time-limited grant? I mean, assumedly it is, right?
Yes.
Okay, so then there would need to be some replacement funding in the future to keep it going?
Yes, good point, yes.
Yeah. You mentioned using a third party to provide that service. Would they be driving Skagit Transit logoed vehicles?
So the last, and Malia could probably speak to this too, because she did it at Lewis County. I did it, we had microtransit at a previous agency that I worked for, and yes, it was our agency branded vehicles. Did you do the same at Lewis?
Yeah, we operated the service in-house at Lewis County Transit, and so as our operators in smaller vehicles, all of them were ADA accessible. The demand for it, skyrocketed.
Little
sorry,
closer
could you
to the
speak into the
microphone,
mic?
thank you.
Sorry, my apologies. There was pretty high demand for it. We went from, having fixed route service that wasn't utilized by many folks to seeing that ridership transfer to the demand response service. Still subsidized. We're kind of figuring out what the rates would be. Here
Oh,
for
okay.
us. Yeah,
Oh,
we're still figuring out what the rates would be. But likely there wouldn't be much of an increase in price, if any, from the fixed route fare that we're currently charging.
That's what we'll probably do.
But with the more specialized service going door to door, we believe that it will help folks get where they need to go quicker. And especially in Anacortes, I think it will really serve the population who has medical appointments, just wants to get to and from the grocery store and pharmacy without the long wait times.
As long as they do it within the zone. And another agency just north of us, Community Transit, just started a microtransit pilot up in Darrington, the one that we're partnering with them on, the interlocal, and their contractor is running Community Transit branded vehicles.
But it's a third-party contractor.
Yes.
So have you decided to use a third party, or are you pondering that?
That's the route that we're headed, mostly because we could do, it's timed money, like you said, and we can get the service up and running much quicker. If we were to run it in-house, we'd have to purchase vehicles, which means we'd have to wait for a grant of opportunity to purchase vehicles, apply for the money, hope we get it. Lead time on vehicles right now, and that's not even considering what's going on with parts, but 12 to 15 months, it would be much faster.
I understand the considerations. And then how would you take payment? Because would assumedly be mostly older people using this service, especially as it is a replacement for the route that goes to the senior center and those kinds of things. How does that payment work on this third-party service?
Great question. So there's
either version of the microtransit.
An app where a credit card could be loaded. We'll probably also offer, because like you said, there are some folks that are technology challenged. They'll be able to call in, and our paratransit buses right now have what they call diamond boxes in them where they can just drop their money in.
Oh, so we think that would still be the case?
That's probably what we'll do, yeah.
Okay.
If I could add, I think this also helps fit a need for pupil transportation. We see pupil transportation is typically one of the things that's cut when there's funding constraints. And so during my time at Lewis County Transit, we really saw a lot of students being transferred on the demand response service. Parents felt more comfortable with it. There's app capabilities to track the ride, to know, the license plate of the vehicle that their child's in. They get a notification when their child's dropped off. And so we're already considering some different options for that. But I wouldn't say it's just older people. I definitely think there's a whole separate population that could really benefit from the service.
And students ride free too.
Other questions?
Mayor Miller?
Ms. Clue McGrath?
So I think Mr. Walters just touched on it. Looking at slide 19, the existing versus recommended, if I'm reading it correctly, there will no longer be service to the high school, middle school, senior center pool. That would all be on demand. Is that correct?
So we don't actually go by the high school right now. It's like a couple of blocks away on the side of the high school. But
Sure.
Yeah, it would
But
be.
like go up by the middle school to the pool. I mean, high schoolers can walk a block, right? But will that all be on demand then in the zone? Or will we also will it still be on a route? Because it doesn't look like it's on a route.
Yeah, the 410 will service the high school and the middle school.
What color is that one?
Purple.
Purple, okay.
Yeah, and the high school.
And it won't go to, I guess looking at the existing, there's that little like green that sticks out and then drops down. Where does that go?
Do you have the?
Okay.
So, you got to come up to the microphone. We record this whole thing.
My apologies. I have to take a look at the routes again, but my understanding is it's about 4 blocks to the schools. And so we've determined that that's an area that we need to increase service, and a recommendation for right now is to assume some of those stops into the 410, and then the others would be met by the demand response service, most likely.
Okay.
But as we, really want to share, any feedback on that is much appreciated. The more we can capture, the more it helps us inform the changes that are or are not made.
So then, when they talk about the high school, middle school walking 4 blocks, essentially they're going to walk east to M Avenue. Does that sound right?
Yes.
It loops commercial M Avenue.
Right, and
Okay.
part of the reason for that recommendation, I think, is we don't get high ridership from the middle school or the high school on the 410, the 409 right now.
And just as a point of interest, I think Mr. Walters and I were touring the high school almost a year ago, and one of the things that we heard from some of the high school students who were giving us a tour was the challenge for students who do not have access to vehicles after school activities, being able to get to where they need to go. So that's kind of why I ask. So hopefully this pilot program will be shared with the high school and middle school students so that they can start using it too.
Yeah, definitely. We did outreach to all the school districts, and unfortunately, nobody from Anacortes showed up. So my assistant did send the presentation out, the big one, the full presentation that the board saw, and asked them, everyone that didn't show up, to review it and provide comments. So if you have a connection with the school, please tell them to provide comments.
And you've met with Senior Center. I mean, that's like the other
We
kind
did
of
meet with the
population that
senior-
seems really
yes.
important. Okay,
We
good.
did, yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mayor Miller?
Mr. Fantini?
In the larger executive report, are there more detailed maps? Because this one is kind of hard for me to see like the exact, I can kind of
it's-
get an area, but
It's not a great map. We'll make sure that we provide.
like, what is the little green?
Get your magnifying glass out.
We like our maps here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing that I was just wondering about, because I know you did an extensive public outreach campaign and did many different methods to do that with.
did.
Did you see, just as we, look to always improve public outreach, did you see any that were more engaged with than others, where you had, were there, were your meetings?
I felt like the Anacortes folks were pretty engaged. Just like a lot of the outreach that I'm sure you guys do, we struggled to get as much feedback as we wanted, to the point where we actually extended the community engagement period and did a much more aggressive campaign to try to get folks to respond, and offered some online, remote options and such. But yeah, it was quite difficult to get people to come out and kind of respond.
And you said that full executive report is on the website?
It is.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Miller?
Ms. Clue McGrath?
One other question. You've got kind of the pilot zone that around M Avenue, north, south, and commercial, right, and R Avenue. How will you gather information to figure out if expansion to that whole purple area makes sense? Because that seems pretty significant. Because I think about, yes, getting dropped off in that, the initial area makes sense, but a lot of folks live in that larger area and could really utilize it further. So what's kind of your plan for being able to figure out the demand?
So that would be great for right now the community to comment on. Ideally, if we get the full grant fund that we're expecting, we can deploy up to 3 vehicles at a time, and we might have to play with the service hours a little bit. But if we get the full funding, we should actually be able to cover the whole service area.
All right, and since the main objective is to get community feedback, I will ask if there's anybody here that wants to give feedback on this tonight. All right, and then remind where's the best place to make a comment. Obviously, council knows how to get a hold of you.
Did we bring any of we've got a QR code, did we bring that? Did we bring the papers? On our website, www.skagittransit.org.
Perfect, thank you.
Mayor Miller?
Ms. Moulton?
One of the improvements also that I think is that, when I've talked with people about it, that is meeting with a lot of approval, is having a 1-seat ride from Skagit Station to Anacortes and back, instead of having to switch at March's Point. That's going to be a high level of convenience. And I appreciate all the outreach that you've done and the listening to people and putting potential ridership at the center of this. That's very refreshing. And also, one of the facts that I've heard multiple times is a lot of transit agencies are back to their pre-pandemic levels of ridership, and we are not. We're, what, 35%?
We're about 30% down still.
30% down, so it is trending in the right direction.
It's going up, like
it
month
is.
over month, it's going up slowly, but again, that's the whole purpose. I feel like we're not providing the service that the community needs, or we would be above our pre-pandemic levels.
Yes, so I really appreciate that motivation, and I see this really moving in that direction.
Thank
you.
Any other questions, comments?
Mayor Miller.
Mr. Walters?
Did you consider any options to run the 40X all the way out to Skyline?
We did, however, the consultant looks at census blocks, and that's not considered a marginalized area, so that's one of the reasons. And it's also about the length of the route. If you think about it going all the way from Skagit Station all the way, it could potentially make the route rather long. However, if that's if that's a comment, we can definitely go back to see if that's an option.
Yeah, I don't know if it is a need or not, and maybe not all the way out to Skyline, but maybe toward the west numbered streets could be valuable. But certainly it's also the trade-off that it makes the route longer.
Right.
And the ride longer. Last time I tried to take the bus between Anacortes and Mount Vernon, I think I had to take Island Transit to get to March's Point and then switch to Skagit Transit. This was a number of years ago.
Oh, okay.
So this is definitely an improvement over what I previously had experienced. I think that the on-demand has really a lot of potential, and would really like to see that
I'm excited for
potentially work.
microtransit here.
What kind of vehicles would you be using? ADA accessible, you said, but how many people could, like a group of school kids, charter one of these and get from the high school to the Marine Tech Center or to the skate park?
So to have an ADA vehicle that still runs a smaller, on a smaller platform, I think the most seated is what, 12 or 13, and then still be an ADA accessible
That's
vehicle.
a good number. Is that what you're planning?
Yes, but we also have to see whatever contractor that we choose, it's likely, and that could, now that we're talking this through, that could be one of the things that in the scope of work that we can write, right? It has to have a vehicle that can have a capacity of 12 and be ADA accessible.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's desirable or not. I was just brainstorming there.
It will likely be a Ford Transit van or a Dodge ProMaster, if you're interested in looking the vehicles up.
okay.
Those are the two that we see most commonly used throughout Washington State, at least.
But as long as they're not rear loader vans, because we use those at a previous agency, and those are, you really want the side load, because especially if you don't have the infrastructure, if you drop a passenger off in the rear, then they can't get up the sidewalk oftentimes. So that's something else to take into consideration. Live and learn, right?
Thank you.
All right, anything else? All right, well, thank you very much for the presentation. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
All right, next up is item 7C. This is a contract award. It's a sewer pump station number 16 upgrade. This is a discussion item with possible action. Mr. Rayum, whenever you're ready.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Before you is a contract with Faber Construction in the amount of $1,445,107 to upgrade the sewer pump station 16. Due to stormwater inflow into the sanitary sewer during storm events, the sewer wet well, which is a big tank underground, that collects water to be pumped to the 4-inch force main, was not sized for the amount of water it receives. Overtopping the existing pump station would result in a sewage overflow and could have the sewer main back up into houses. In addition, there is no backup power at the location, so the system has limited capacity in the event of a power failure. Different design scenarios were considered, and the most cost-effective solution was to add an additional storage tank underground, doubling the wet well, by installing a generator on site, updating the controls, and adding features to complete the upgrade, which includes a water hydrant and a backflow prevention device.
And I know, because we love maps, so if you move the map up a little bit so we can see the whole thing, here we go.
Yeah, I wanted to show you, and I think the cursor, you guys can see that from
Yep.
your screens. Okay, the pump station is the green dot, and this whole area here goes through that pump station, is pumped into this area that goes over to another pump station that's behind Skyline Marina and then up the hill.
All right. Questions for Mr. Am?
Mayor Miller?
Mr. Walters?
To put this as gently as possible, we would not allow a development to be created today that would rely on a sewer pump station that didn't have a backup generator or some of the other features that this one will have, correct?
If we were building a brand new lift station, we would definitely have a backup generator on site.
Do we have any clues as to why we have so much I&I? I mean, obviously there's a lot of groundwater in this area, but why is it getting into the sewer system?
So before my time, but from what I understand is that a lot of the sewer pipes are in rock trenches, which they chiseled into the ground to install the sewers. And that's not the greatest situation. I understand they think that's what is happening. They're not 100% sure. They did do some I&I studies in here to try to figure out if there's something that we could do by lining the pipes and things like that to try to make it reduce the flow. And there's no smoking gun, which is typical with I&I.
We think it is likely to be a pipe failure issue.
Not necessarily a pipe failure issue. It's more of, it's just the pipe is in a trench that's full of water. So it's not like water's coming out. We don't think that's the case at all. The trench comes with the pipe right at the station.
Oh, so the trench is delivering the water.
That's what we believe, but like where that water is getting into the trench, I can't tell you.
All right, thank you.
Other questions? All right,
Mayor
motions.
Miller?
Mr. Fantini.
If there's no other questions, I move that the city council authorize the mayor to sign contract 23-259-SEW-002 with Faber Construction Company in the amount of $1,445,000 and change to perform the sewer pump station number 16 upgrade.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Fantini, a second by Ms. Hubick to approve the contract as presented. Any additional discussion? Mr. Francie, vote please.
Ms. Cleveland McGrath.
Yes.
Ms. Moulton.
Yes.
Mr. McDougall.
Yes.
Ms. Hubick.
Yes.
Mr. Fantini.
Yes.
Mr. Walters.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, next up, item 7D. This is a support letter, Anacortes Able Housing Initiative Letter of Support. This is a discussion item with possible action, and should council take action, I do have a hard copy letter for signature. And I know a number of council members requested this, and any council member want to jump on right in?
Mayor Miller?
Mr. Fantini.
So this proposed letter of support is for the Anacortes Able Housing Initiative. They have a request for some state funding, and this is a way for us as a council. I know they did a presentation before the HACS committee, I believe it was, and there seemed to be a lot of interest from the HACS committee as well to show support. Mr. Bruce Henderson is here tonight as a representative, should we have any questions for him. But this is a great way for us to show support for them to get funding for a group of individuals. I think there's 45 that have been identified as living here already. Their goal is to come up with housing opportunities for folks as a lot of their caregivers age out and are unable to do that. And so this letter would be a way for us to show support from the full council.
Any questions?
Mayor Miller?
Mr. Walters.
I would just tag on to that this population, which is adults with intellectual development disabilities, was identified as one of the vulnerable populations with sort of a looming cliff of the parents of those adults with disabilities aging out of being able to take care of them. We identified that back in 2022 in our report on unmet needs in the community. So this is not a surprise to us. It is a welcome development, though, that this group has formed to try to support these people.
Mayor Miller,
Ms. Hubick?
would like to ask a question about clarification. The agenda packet says that they're seeking funding from the state of Washington. Is it through a department or is it a direct legislative allocation that would be impacted from a budget decision this year?
Mayor Miller?
Mr. Fantini?
It's from the Housing Trust Fund from the Department of Commerce.
Thank you.
Mayor Miller,
Mr. McDougall?
I just wanted to thank my fellow council members for putting this together, for writing this letter, and I'm very happy to be added as a co-signer.
All right, aren't any more questions? I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor Miller?
Mr. Fantini?
I move that we, oh, it looks like we're signing, great. I move that the city council approve the letter of support as presented.
Second.
Okay, a motion by Mr. Fantini and a second by Mr. McDougall. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion carries, and passing it down, and I've signed off on the letter, and so, and we'll get an electronic version from our other council members who couldn't make it tonight. All right, next up is another letter of support. Item 7E, this is the Anacortes Housing Authority Olson Project Letter of Support. This is a discussion item, possible action. And since I see many of the board members and representatives of the Housing Authority, welcome tonight. So with that, council.
Mayor Miller?
Mr. Walters.
This letter comes from the Housing, Affordability, and Community Services Committee. We propose this letter of support in support of the Housing Authority's application for some Skagit County housing grant money. That grant source is their .09 funding source, and as described in the agenda bill, Skagit County is making that funding source available for housing for the first time this year, thanks to a change in state law that allows that to happen. And they have banked and set aside $3 million from this funding source for housing projects that won't be in competition with the traditional public facilities that have been eligible for the .09 funding source grants. The project that AHA is asking for money for is the Olson Building. The Olson Building project was included in our affordable housing sales tax effort from 2020. Voters approved the affordable housing sales tax for 3 projects, and this was one of them. The Olson Building has lagged behind the other 2 projects, which are now already constructed and occupied. But it promises to potentially develop as many units as the other 2 projects did combined. The Olson Building is on the corner of 3rd and Commercial in the Marine Supply block there, and it's a historic building. So it has presented some of its own challenges that way. But it's also likely to be more expensive than originally proposed because between voter approval of this affordable housing sales tax and today, we had a pandemic and 20% inflation over 3 years. So all of the projects ended up more expensive than originally conceived. HA would be eligible for up to $1 million from the funding source, and because it really is as much a city-sponsored project as the AHA's project itself, because of all the city's involvement, we suggested that the City Council should support the grant application with a letter of support that would go to the county.
All right, and again, I'm sure you all have read the letter, and I'll pass it along as well. But any other comments, questions? Motions, perhaps, then?
Mayor Miller,
Mr. McDougall.
again, thank you, fellow council members, and I move that the city council approve the letter of support as presented.
Second.
Okay, a motion by Mr. McDougall, a second by Mr. Fantini to approve signing of the letter of support to the Olson project. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you very much. And no further business for the council. I'll adjourn tonight's meeting.